Welcome to the Tavern, World Builders. Today we are talking about the adult urban fantasy novel Jade City by Fonda Lee. Beware, here there be spoilers. Grab an ale, zero proof always available, and pull up a chair. I'm Emma, your friendly barkeep, along with Allison.
Hi.
And Christiana.
Hello.
And we are so happy to have you here. Cheers!
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 For anybody who has not read this book, here is a very quick summary. The Call family is one of two crime syndicates that control the island of Kaigen. It's the only place in the world that produces rare magical jade, which grants those with the right training and heritage superhuman abilities. The Green Bone clans of honorable jade-wearing warriors once protected the island from foreign invasion, but nowadays, in a bustling post-war metropolis full of fast cars and foreign money, Greenbone families like the Culls are primarily involved in commerce, construction, and the everyday upkeep of the districts under their protection. When the simmering tension between the Culls and their greatest rivals, the Mountain Clan, erupts into open violence in the streets, the outcome of this clan war will determine the fate of all Greenbones and the future of Kaigen itself. So this is the first of a trilogy of books. So we get, of course, a full story, but there is a broader story that we did not read all of. So we're going to be focusing on book one. And with that, let's hop on over into Happy Hour. So what did we think of this book? I think this is one that none of us had read before. Is that correct?
I hadn't read it.
Yeah, same.
Yeah.
It's been a while since we've done something that like none of us had seen or read before.
Yeah, it's always dangerous choosing that.
Yeah.
Sometimes it ends up not being something we like.
Yeah.
But this one is very, very popular and beloved.
Yes.
So it was a good choice.
Yeah. I liked it. I don't think it's one of my all-time favorite books. I'd probably give it like a solid 4 stars. It was good. But yeah, what did you guys think of it?
I'm about the same, I think. I enjoyed it. This is going to sound way harsher than it actually is, just because I've been so busy lately. If I wasn't reading this for the podcast, I'm not sure if I would have finished it. Not because it isn't fantastic, but just because it's like I have 400 million things on the go.
I found it very dense and one of those books where you have to read like every sentence and pay attention. So it was not like a leisure read for me.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Yeah, I thought the world building was so good. So I'm very excited to be talking about that. Gangster stories aren't really my cup of tea, so I knew this wasn't going to be for me. But I think for anyone who likes that and likes Asian martial arts mixed with gangsters, Godfather type story and fantasy, I think is going to really like this. And the world building and writing is fantastic.
It's a very like
it's really
objectively like well-crafted book, which is always nice. It's always better, even if it's not your personal taste, to read something where you're like, oh, this is, well written, well put together, I can respect it, even if it's not like my genre. I believe this was my pick for the podcast because I had just, like, I've heard incredible things about this book and this series, and it's been on my TBR, so I was like, this is a great opportunity to read it. I did find myself, like, as I was reading it, I was like, this isn't as incredible as I was expecting it to be based on
the hype
things I've
it
heard.
Up too much.
Yeah, which can always happen. Like, sometimes things are hyped and are not good or are not your taste or whatever. So I did look it up, and I did find responses from people online talking about it where they liked the whole trilogy much more than like the original book. So I am thinking about it. I think that makes sense because this book does kind of feel like a big setup. Like by the end of the book, you've gotten to like where the two clans are at war, things have kicked off, but the rest of the book is kind of just getting it to that point. So I do hope, because I think I'll probably try out the rest of the trilogy. I feel like it probably gets better or gets more like things get rolling in the next 2 books. I think this is a lot of setup.
Do you want to read the trilogy actually, which is, I know, contrary to me being like, I don't know if I would have finished it. That has nothing to do with the book and entirely to do with like a really dense book when you're like traveling for work. And like, do you know what I mean? It was like really hard for me to be like, okay, sit down and pay attention to this for 2 hours. It was just a timing thing for me. I did really like it, and I love a good mob kind of story, which is interesting because I don't love mob movies. Like The Godfather, I can recognize as a fantastic movie, but it's, it's not something I watch all that often or anything like that.
But if it's mixed
mob
up
with
with
magic,
yeah, with magic and like all that kind of stuff, and I really enjoyed it actually.
Yeah. So maybe Christiana and I will finish the trilogy, or maybe Allison will
Let
too.
me
I don't know if
know.
Allison's. Yeah,
I don't know.
Maybe we'll report back in a future podcast episode.
For me,
We'll just give
it'll
real
be
quick
a while
update.
until my schedule clears up a bit before I'm willing to go for another really dense read like that. But
It's
Yeah.
quite a thick book too. Like
it is.
Yeah.
Yeah,
it
it's
was
long.
like 600 pages or something.
Yeah. With that, let's hop on over to Tavern Talk. Since we all agree that the world building and the construction of this book is really good, I think it'll be a really fun discussion to talk about. So we are talking about this, again, through the lens of genre, and this one, of course, is an urban fantasy.
Yeah, so when I think of urban fantasy, I usually think of our world, werewolves, vampires.
Yeah.
And so I really like that this falls into that genre, but it's different.
It's a
not-
second world fantasy,
Yeah.
yeah, like it takes place. The setup is kind of, like it mirrors in some ways our
The world
world.
does very much seem like
Yeah.
ours, you know, with cars and
Motorcycles and all
it's
that
kind of like
fun stuff.
70s-ish
Yeah.
level of technology.
Yeah, like there's no cell phones, but there are. I don't think there's cell phones.
I don't think there's
I don't remember there
internet
being-
or
yeah, there's no
anything like
internet,
that,
but there's
yeah.
cars and there's
Yeah.
like regular telephones
And guns and stuff.
and guns. Yeah.
televisions. Yeah.
I always love it when you introduce guns into a fantasy setting. I don't know. There's like something really specific about that I'm like, that's so funny. The idea of like a wizard being like, I cast fireball, and you're like, I shoot you with my
That's
gun.
always, I feel like that's the thing that
always-
people point out about
yeah.
Harry Potter is like, if only any of the wizards had got a gun at any
Just
point,
bought a
we could
gun,
have
yeah.
finished this so much sooner.
So
Yeah.
so I always really enjoy that kind of juxtaposition. I always find it really fascinating and interesting, and seeing what they do with it and how they incorporate magic against a literal bullet kind of thing.
Mhm.
I do
cool.
really love Final Fantasy. That's the one franchise I love that also has got like fantasy plus science.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah. It can be tough to come up with a good magic system when your world also has
Yes.
tech in it, because that is often become the thing of like one overbalances the other. Like, well, why on earth would you ever not use magic if you have it? Like, why does tech develop in the first place? Or then vice versa, where it's like this tech could so easily take out this wizard. Why don't they just do that?
Oh, I'm excited you brought this up, Emma. I want to talk about the magic system.
Yeah, and I think I think that Jane Fonda did a great job of, sorry, not Jane Fonda, that's the actress, Fonda Lee. Fonda Lee, I think, did a great job of this magic system because it really works with the tech, because as
It does,
we stated
yeah.
in the little intro, this magic system works by sort of enhancing your abilities. You become superhuman, you become faster, you become stronger. There's a little bit of more like stereotypical magic of like being able to like shoot pulses, like they call it deflection, where you can like shoot things
Yeah.
away from you. But for the most part, it's not, you know, fireballs and that sort of magic. It's just enhancing your abilities. So while you are a lot, like we see them go up against guns and they have the ability to kind of deflect bullets and that sort of thing, it's not like they're casting fireballs, and a well-placed bullet could still take you out. Like you're not impervious.
What I also love about the magic system is that it's very much enmeshed in the world and the culture and society. Like there's a religion around it. Like I love how green bones are named that, because it's like the bones of the
Yeah,
goddess
I liked
that
that.
laid down and
Yeah.
made
Yeah.
the island that they live on, their nation. One piece of advice I'm always giving to writers is if you can like pull out an individual element of your story, whether it's a scene or like a section of dialogue or a character or something, and the story remains exactly the same, that means that thing either doesn't need to be there or needs to be tweaked or something. Sometimes I feel like magic systems could just be like pulled out. They're just like some extra thing that you throw in because it's cool. But this was very much completely embedded in the world, and you could not have the same story without Jade, and the novel's even named after it for good reason.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I liked the function of Jade in general, and this idea of, you know, it works for the right people, but then suddenly it's working for outsiders now kind of thing. Like that is such an intense thing to deal with. Yeah.
I loved Lan's story with Jade and how he felt like he had to wear more of it to show his power, but then
Yeah.
he
He's
actually
the leader.
struggled with
Yeah.
wearing it. It was like too much power for him, and
Yeah.
he ends up taking H1N or Shine. Is that what it was called? Shine.
Yeah.
SN1 is the or Shine.
Some letters and a number. I really like his.
Which, for anyone who hasn't read the series, that's a drug that's been developed in the world, which allows either people, because typically only. Like we don't know if it's a genetic thing, but only certain people can use Jade. Yeah, so it's like a inherited thing. But if you take this drug, then you can use it. And also it can help, even if you already are able to use it, it can help you use more of it without getting the side effects, because there are some nasty side effects of it if you use too much Jade. So this is like a synthetic drug that has been introduced onto the market that lets people use Jade or more Jade than they normally would be allowed to.
Yeah, and the No Peak clan, Lan and the Culls clan, is very traditional, and so they seem very opposed to using this drug.
Yeah.
Which makes it really interesting that Lan starts taking it, because he feels all this pressure to be a leader and show his strength.
Yeah, and ultimately that becomes his downfall.
His downfall, yeah.
Spoiler alert, he perishes throughout the book, and it's because he's wearing so much Jade and taking this drug, and it's like too much for him. So then when these street thugs try to assassinate him, normally they wouldn't have been able to, but he ends up dying.
Well, he ends up taking too much Shine.
Yeah, he like overdoses.
Yeah, so he can't use his Jade powers, and then they don't even kill him. They like leave, and then he falls into a river.
It just drowns. Yeah,
it's so sad. I was actually expecting, so at that point I was not expecting him to die. Earlier in the book I had been expecting him to die, because there was like a scene where it just felt like one of those scenes where it's like, oh, everything is like smooth and fine, and this is when the person pops out and shoots him, and that didn't happen, and I was like, oh, okay, I guess he's gonna live. And then like a third of the way, like later after that, 2/3 of the way through, then he gets killed. I'm like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
I was picking up on it, but just too soon. I feel like that's kind of a trope in like, maybe not necessarily just urban fantasies, but in kind of mafia or mob or organized crime stories. It's like the leader gets taken out, right? And there's a power vacuum. And what happens in the power vacuum, which this book definitely obviously
does.
helps.
Just a little bit later in the story.
Yeah. Which is one of the reasons why also I feel like this is kind of a setup book, because I think normally, like if this was a movie, that would probably happen closer to the beginning, like ish, and then you'd spend the rest of the movie with the fallout. Whereas now we're going to spend the rest of the series with the fallout.
Yeah.
Other hallmarks of sort of urban fantasies often are like different factions. So sometimes that's different like species, like, you know, werewolves versus vampires. In this novel, you have the two gangs. So you have the No Peak and the Mountains, and then you also have people who can use Jade and people who can't use Jade.
And the people who are resistant to Jade, which is also cool.
Yes.
Or it doesn't affect them.
Yeah. So they have their own place in society. Like, they're the ones who mine the Jade, because if you're sensitive to Jade and you're mining it, you would just immediately get overwhelmed by how much of it there is.
Which is, I found that interesting, because if I were building a world and I was like, there's this thing that can give people powers and there's some people who are immune to it, I would think that they would quickly become like supervillains. Like, I would go that direction with it, where it's like, this doesn't affect me, ooh, kind of thing. Whereas with them, it's like, and you're gonna go work in the mines. It's like,
it depends on the society. Like, Jade is so revered almost that the people who it doesn't affect are almost seen
outcasts,
as less than.
almost.
Yeah. You can also
exploited.
Yeah, we have a character, or it's possible for also you to be born into like a Kaigenese family, but not be able to use Jade. They're called Stone Eyes in this society,
which
and they're seen as being kind of bad luck, or as though they're cursed, which is very interesting. I also found it interesting world building. It wasn't a huge plot in the book, but it came up a couple of times because one of the characters is, he refers to himself as being queer, and that's kind of seen the same way as being a Stone Eyes. Like, it's not outright, like, banned or shunned or anything, but people kind of see it as, oh, it's bad luck that you've been born like this, which I think is a very interesting approach.
Yeah, that's an interesting
It's like weirdly progressive in its own way to be like, you were born like this, it's not a choice, but I still hate it.
Yeah, it's like if you were born like this, isn't that too bad? Which is
that sucks.
You're halfway there, I guess.
Yeah.
You're like, oh, okay.
Yeah. So that was also kind of an interesting
You got one part right, at least. Yeah.
Yeah.
I also just this another small world building thing that I liked in this is I always love like taking a twist on something in real life. So I loved in this, normally if you call somebody green, it would be that they're, in our world, it's like, oh, you're new,
That's
you're naive.
true.
And then in this,
Yeah.
if you were green, it's because you had a lot of jade. So being the more green you were, the more powerful you were.
The more experienced to some extent. Yeah, the exact
So I
opposite.
love a swap like that. So every time I read that, I was like, oh, that's so clever. Good
Speaking
job.
of terms and words, I really liked not Jane Fonda. Now you got me doing
Fonda Lee.
Fonda Lee.
The other Fonda.
She throws in some made-up terms and phrases and slang and stuff that just make the world feel really real.
Mm-hmm.
And I wrote some of them down just to say for examples. And some of them will like tie into history or make sense in other ways. Like Stone Eye is a really good one because it's like, oh, everyone's obsessed with jade, and then this is just plain stone. So that makes perfect sense. There's like characters referring to ordering an assassination as whispering their name, which I thought was really cool.
So good.
Yeah.
Like such a fun turn of phrase. And gangs come down from the forest when they prepare for a fight, which is a reminder of how the clans were once freedom fighters hiding out in the wilderness. So it's kind of like going back into some of the backstory and history of the world. And then, of course, the green bones themselves, which I already mentioned, are a reference to this goddess, which occasionally throughout the story, there's some backstory of the religion and the gods and how people used to be gods or want to go back to becoming deities if they're good enough or something like that, which is funny because this is like a gang story where people are not good at all or really striving for that.
Yeah. I love a slang that has a purpose like that. Like, I think, like, there's always, like, kind of different, different levels or different tiers of being able to do something. And I think, like, a basic kind of world building thing is, like, putting in slang, just random slang, because it makes your world feel more lived in. But then I think, like, the heightened tier of that is exactly what you're saying, Allison, where it's like, oh, no, this is, like, telling us about history. It's telling us about, even, like, whispering the name. Like, that helps to communicate how powerful these clans are. Like, you only have to whisper the name, and they're dead, right?
And that is how words and phrases work in our world. Like, they always have some origin, often one that we've forgotten. So it makes perfect sense that when you come up with, like, slang in your world, it also has a meaning behind it, even if people have forgotten it.
Yeah. Other tropes, which one that we kind of talked about is often in urban fantasies you'll have problems that are both solved by magic, but also solved not by magic, because you have this world that exists in both the, like, mundane and the magical at the same time. And often magic causing problems that then have to be solved.
Yes,
which
and magic
is definitely
sure causes a lot of problems.
Yeah.
If Jade didn't exist, I don't think we would have this story at all.
No, we would not. I really found it interesting that the magic system was in and of itself kind of like a drug. Like, we have this synthetic drug, which is a problem, but also Jade itself is kind of like a drug. You can put it on and off. Like, if you only get the power of it when you're touching it. And so if you start touching it, you get this, like, rush of, like, that you have to then kind of withstand. And then it settles into you and you're super powerful. And then when you let go of it, you also get, like, it's almost like a hangover, like, of having had jade that goes away. And if you use too much jade, more than you can handle, you get the itches, which is really nasty.
Yeah, Andon's character was really interesting. So this is Lan and Hilo and Shay's adopted brother, so he's not blood.
Yeah, he was like taken into the clan. Yeah.
And he's just super afraid of using jade because his mom had the itches, and so he's afraid it's going to happen to him, or like he's afraid of the power, and he ends up using jade to kill a bunch of people, and he kind of likes it, and then that freaks him out, which makes a lot of sense. So yeah, just the power of this kind of drug, it is kind of like a drug, is quite scary.
Yeah, we get this scene very briefly of, like, how his mom died, and she, like, grated with, like, cheese grated her arms, and it's like, it's because your skin gets so, or, like, you get all itchy, and, like, it's awful. We've talked before about how, like, magic should have a cost, ideally, like, there should be some sort of cost, and, like, the cost is very high in this. Yeah.
I like that he turned it down at the end.
And then, he ends up leaving.
Yeah, Hilo's very upset with him.
Yes. And he ends up deciding, like, no, I'm not going to, even though he's been studying and training to be a green bone, he's like, that's not the path for me, kind of thing. I thought that was a really interesting narrative.
You guys will have to tell me when you finish the series.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like that idea of, like, breaking cycles to some extent, if we're looking at it from, like, a substance perspective, breaking a cycle.
Yeah.
But also, even if we're just looking at it from, like, a familial expectation sort of thing, being like, I'm not going to be what you want me to be. It's just not who I am. And taking off for that.
I'm expecting him to be sucked back in, similar to how Shay tried to get away from
sister
the family,
who,
and then
at the beginning of the novel, comes back after having been gone and Jadeless for a long time.
And she kind of wants to not be a part of it, but then gets sucked back in again as well, because it's her family, and then Lan dies, and she feels like she needs
obligated
to step up.
Yeah. Although it is interesting that even the characters who object to it don't really do so, because oftentimes in organized crime, I feel like that's, or like tropes, there's like the thing of like the one person who's like, well, this is morally wrong and I don't want to be part of it. And like, that's not really their, like, they don't really care about killing people. Like, that's not at all. It's not like that we don't want to commit murder. It's the like, I don't like what this is doing to me personally, or I don't like the family expectations. Because also, which fits into the world building, because in this world, the rules are different for green bones. Like, killing is not illegal. You're allowed to do this. Clan fights are expected.
Yeah.
There's rules between the clans. Like, you're not supposed to kill people like Jade, they call them Jadeless, people who don't carry Jade. You're not supposed to kill them because that's dishonorable. But anybody else is like totally fair game.
Yeah, it's also interesting the different dynamics of the No Peak clan and Mountain. So No Peak seems to be all about sort of honor and tradition, and Mountain just wants to make money.
Yeah,
they're like, we want to sell Jade to other countries, and we want to sell this new drug to other countries and get money. And so when they try to like have these peace talks, you're like, well, this isn't going to come anywhere, because they're diametrically opposed in what they want.
Yeah, and it's a really, again, like we were talking about how or Allison was talking about how it's always good to make sure that everything is interwoven. And what a good magic system for this type of story, because the magic, you want to prove yourself powerful if you're going to be the head of a crime syndicate, right? Like, you need people to be afraid of you. You need your followers to trust that you can protect them. And so then there's this Jade, which hurts you, but you need to wear a lot of it in order to show how strong and powerful you are. And they just fit so well together. It's very well done.
Yeah. It's also just, I found it the whole time, I was like flipping between what I thought the Jade was a metaphor of, which it doesn't have to be. It's just magic. I'm not saying that you have to write it a metaphor, but I'm like, toxic masculinity. It hurts you as much as it hurts the other people. And then I'm like, maybe not that. Substance use. Like, it hurts the other people. It hurts you as much as it, like, helps you. And, like, I kept thinking of all these different situations where I was like, maybe it's a metaphor for this or for that. And then I was like, I just think it's just not a metaphor, but...
Yeah, not everything is a metaphor. Something, but, like, sometimes you can see elements of it, even if it's not a one-to-one directly.
There was some toxic masculinity in the story, not necessarily the magic, but like when she becomes
the weatherman.
What's the term? The weatherman,
which is one of the like second in command positions of the clan.
And some people won't even talk to her because she's a woman.
Yeah.
So I found that was interesting that Fondly decided to make it sort of a male-dominated culture, even though the head of the Mountain clan is a woman, and she got there like by brutally murdering her own family, so like people respect her, but I guess she had to prove herself first, as opposed to just be having that automatic
because there is sort of a I think Hilo thinks about it after Lan's death, or someone of the characters thinks about it, I can't remember, but how, you know, Hilo's not necessarily suited to being the pillar, which is the leader of the clan, but there's nobody else to do it because nobody would listen to Shay because she's a woman, unless she did something like the leader of the Mountain did, but that's not in Shay's nature, so he's not going to do a brutal murder spree. So and it's like, it's kind of like it's slightly male-dominated because women are still allowed to, like, women still carry Jade, they are in these positions, but it's still, you know, they have to fight to get there harder and are taken less seriously until they do all these extra measures to prove themselves.
Yeah, really interesting.
Another trope of urban fantasies is often like magic shaping society and society shaping magic, which I mean, we've talked about that was definitely a
definitely
thing.
that.
And it's like what like magic and society is completely shaped by each other in this. Do you think the society shaped the magic at all?
I think definitely, because it could have been, if you have this material that gives people superhuman strength, the society as a whole could have decided, we vote. I'm thinking of this just because it's in the news. I am not religious. They could have elected a pope, right? Where it's like, that's the guy who wears the jade and is our Superman and does things and helps us. Like, it could have been an election. They could elect who decides to have the honor, right? Like, it could have
taken a lot of forms.
Yeah.
The way it is definitely shapes how they use the jade and sort of what's expected. Like, especially that the higher ups are expected to wear so much of it, even though that actually seems really bad.
Yeah.
It seems dumb, actually. It's like, you shouldn't wear more of this substance than you can handle because it's going to kill you, but to prove your strength, you have to.
Yeah.
People are trying to steal it all the time. I don't know. It's like wearing a solid gold and diamond suit out on the town.
And that you're
just kind of
legally entitled to, if you kill somebody else who wears it, you get their jade.
Get their jade. And then you're expected to wear it.
Yes.
So it's like you're expected to put more and more of it on if you...
And just always have a massive target on your back.
Yeah. Which is one of the, like, Lan had just killed a powerful enemy, which is one of the reasons why he was expected to wear so much jade. Because it's like, well, if you're not wearing his jade, something's wrong. And then that's showing weakness, and then we can swoop in on your clan.
Yeah, such interesting power dynamics.
Really, I love a power dynamic. And then another trope, or not necessarily a trope, but there's often two streams that urban fantasies can take, one of which is magic is hidden, and one of which is like magic is out in the open and everybody knows about it. This is definitely the latter.
Magic is hidden is more common, I think. Like, the werewolves are hiding in their little underground space, and the vampires try and pretend to be human to get their dinner, and so that was neat about this, that it was just out in the open.
Everybody knows about it. There's no secrets. I also found it interesting that there was mentions of other countries. Like, it's mostly focused in this one place, but they talked about these foreign places and how the what the relationships
Jade
between
went
them were like.
To another country to try and get out of Kaigen and studied at a different one. And then they briefly talk about them in that the mountain clan wants to like be selling Jade and the drug, or just the drug?
Jade and the drug, because they can't use the Jade if they don't have the drug.
I kept thinking, like, is the rest of this trilogy just going to be all colonialism? Like, what people would want to take over that country and be like, no, this is ours now, kind of thing. So,
I mean, they briefly touch on some, like, Kaigen did have indigenous people, like they're the ones that
that are resistant
to Jade
Jade
doesn't affect, and then the Kaigenese kind of took it over, and they're now
and then they were
lesser.
Also kind of taken over and had to fight back, and then like we took quote unquote their country, which is also very, and we get a little bit of, mostly from Shay's Shay's thought, we get a little bit of an insight into what other people think of it. Like, she's thinking about how I forget what the country that she went to is called, Esperen,
I think.
Espenia, thank you. Yes, how they think of Kaigen as being like very savage. Like, the people there are very like brutal and like
they
vicious.
Vicious.
Which is interesting because there's different ways that you could perceive other groups. So it's interesting that at least in this one country, at least, they don't view them as being necessarily worthy of respect, but are kind of like, maybe like looked down on in a way.
When you're getting the perspective of basically the calls who are narrating the story, you kind of forget that, other people might think differently about this. You're like, you get so deep into it that you're like, this is how life works.
Any other tropes for urban fantasy that you guys wanted to talk about?
So whenever I think of urban fantasy, I often go to Jim Butcher's Dresden Files.
Classic,
Yeah, and it's a lot of your traditional, you know, there's fae in the world, there's wizards, but everything's hidden. You're not supposed to, you know, show to the normies your magic and powers and stuff. The grittiness is kind of a trope of urban fantasy.
Yeah, definitely.
You did get that here, but in like a different way. Like it was more vicious than sort of like, I didn't get that like grimy, dirty urban fantasy feel. I don't know. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I know what you're saying.
Yeah, I think I got it a little bit, and I think part of it is because we're reading it from the perspective of this very wealthy, privileged family, right? So their life is not grimy. They're living in, right? But we get a couple of chapters from the perspective of actually one of those thug assassins who kills Lan, and I think in his chapters, we get more of that grittiness, right? Because he's struggling to survive. He's around people in active addiction to... I don't think they said which drug necessarily, but like people who are not doing great. Like so I think maybe that's why we don't get as much of that like close up grit in this.
Yeah. And then when I think of urban fantasy, I also often think of like a kind of sarcastic narrating protagonist, like a little bit jaded. No pun intended.
The wisecracking ex-detective.
Yeah, you know? And I don't know if we
it's
have
either that or
here.
like a weirdly innocent person who stumbled upon this mystery by accident kind of thing. It tends to be one or the other. Like I'm thinking of True Blood.
Okay,
actually, because but that's actually an interesting urban fantasy. I'll always defend it. It's not a fantastic show, but the world building had so much potential. Because it's hidden in the beginning, and then it's not hidden. Right? Like you see both sides of it. The vampires are pretending to not exist, but then they, you know, there's whatever they call it, the reckoning or something like that, where they reveal themselves, and you have this very innocent person kind of thrown into the middle of a seedy bar that's money laundering vampire stuff. You know, like the contrast, you tend to have either a very innocent person or someone who's like right in it all the time.
And then there's someone like Buffy the Vampire Slayer who's a bit of both. Like she's sort of an innocent teenager, but she's also quite sarcastic and like, you know,
sarcasm,
has an attitude.
Is a big thing in urban fantasy, which I did not think about. So you pointed that out, Alison. But you don't really get that in this. This is not like a funny. Like I don't think there's one thing in this book.
With Sarah J. Maas, that's another sarcastic female lead. In it. I think City of Gods is another series
like a
that
little
I've
bit
read.
of humor
Very similar.
is common.
The Mortal Instruments series also.
Yeah, you don't get
very
that.
Mortal
here.
Instruments. Yes. Yeah.
Oh, that's so interesting. I think, and I wonder if that is because it's like goes with that like grit and the like, you know, sort of environment. But there's really nothing in this book made me laugh. I don't think there was anybody who made like a wisecrack or which is, that's so interesting. I did not think about that. Huh. Cool.
Yeah, I mean, goes to show you can keep some tropes and buck others, and you still have a really good story. So
because I don't think this book was missing. Like thinking about it, I'm not like, oh, I wish there had been like you know a sarcastic whatever. Like that just would have been weird.
You could have. I think you could have done it that way, but it would have been a very different book then. Like, it wouldn't have been the same.
Or you would have needed a different character, because it wouldn't have made sense for any of these characters to be...
Maybe you would need, like, a side character who adds a bit of comic relief. But I don't think it was needed.
No.
It would take away from a lot of this is about honor and expectations.
Yeah.
And to have someone who's constantly sarcastically being like, you want me to do what? With what? Like, it just wouldn't have fit that
same
vibe,
with, like, it's
I
like
think.
Game of Thrones. Like, you don't... Like, there's some... humor in that book. Like some of the characters make jokes sometimes, but like you don't have the wisecracking whoever in Game of Thrones, and that would be weird because that's just not the tone of.
I mean, Tyrion's a little bit.
Oh, that's true. Yeah, he
like
does
that.
Yeah, fair enough.
But
like
general,
not constantly.
No,
yeah, and you wouldn't ever if you were listing funny books, you wouldn't ever be like,
Game of Thrones,
Game of Thrones, Jade City. Yeah. One maybe last thing before we hop on over, but I found it very interesting that the book is named so Jade City that's what outsiders call the city, whereas people who live there call it Jadlu. What do we think of the fact that it was called the name that outsiders call it? Is that just because Jade City I think is more evocative to us who speak
It's a
English.
better book title as
Yeah,
well. Jan Moon doesn't have the same ring
that
to
means
it.
nothing to us. Yeah, 'cause it's
Yeah.
a made-up word. So do you think it's just that it like is more evocative, or do you think there's anything else?
We're also outsiders coming into the story,
Yeah.
so it sort of makes sense.
Yeah, it feels very meta. I like that.
Yeah.
Although I will say, I've been hearing about this book for years, and for some reason in my head, I was like, I kept seeing like urban fantasy. It's called Jade City, and I was like, gritty retelling of the Wizard of Oz. That's what I kept thinking in my head, because I kept thinking of the Emerald City.
Yeah.
Oh,
And then
funny.
I looked into it and was like, oh,
That's
not that at
That's
all.
not what this
Yeah.
is. Yeah.
But that would also have worked. Very cool.
Yeah.
With that, let's head over to Proprietor's pick. Allison, what is similar to Jade City that you found for us to recommend?
I think if you like Jade City, you will also like The Sword of Kaigen by M.L. Wang.
That's
Emma's
on my
gasping.
TBR, and I bought it, and
yay.
it's on my bookshelf, but
That's
I haven't read it
awesome.
yet. Tell me why I'll love it.
I keep hearing about it, and here's what it's about. High on a mountainside at the edge of the Kaigenese Empire live the most powerful warriors in the world, superhumans capable of raising the sea and wielding blades of ice. For hundreds of years, the fighters of the Kusanagi Peninsula have held the Empire's enemies at bay, earning their frozen spit of land the name the Sword of Kaigen. Born into Kusanagi's legendary Matsuda family, 14-year-old Mamoru has always known his purpose, to master his family's fighting techniques and defend his homeland. But when an outsider arrives and pulls back the curtain on Kaigen's alleged age of peace, Mamoru realizes that he might not have much time to become the fighter he was bred to be. Worse, the empire he was bred to defend may stand on a foundation of lies. Misaki told herself that she left the passions of her youth behind when she married into the Matsuda house. Determined to be a good housewife and mother, she hid away her sword, along with everything from her days as a fighter in a faraway country. But with her growing son asking questions about the outside world, the threat of an impending invasion looming across the sea, and her frigid husband grating on her nerves, Misaki finds the fighter in her clawing its way back to the surface.
I want to see Misaki kick butt.
Me too!
That sounds
Is this a
so
mother-son duo? It sounds, I can't tell whether it's a mother-son or just like two unrelated.
I haven't read it, but it sounds really cool, and you kind of have those family dynamics that you have in Jade City, and sort of like honor and defending your homeland and all that jazz. So it definitely gave me Jade City vibes. Maybe not quite the mafia vibes, but some similarities there. So if you read this, let us know what you think. Maybe Emma will read it and let us know.
That'll push it up on my TV. This is another one that I've heard like incredible things about.
Yeah, me too.
So, and I believe this is one that might have been self-published and then picked up by. I could be wrong about that, but I think that might be the case, which is always fun. Very cool.
Or maybe it is only self-published. I'm actually not sure if it was picked up by. I mean, I could Google it, but I'm not going to.
We're not going to. You at home, listeners, feel free to Google it.
You do that, listener. You Google it.
We've given you the book. You look it up. And with that, we are at last call. Here are some concluding thoughts and questions that we think you can apply from Jade City to your own world building. Allison, what have you taken away from the book?
I'm going to cheat a little bit and make you, listener, do the work for my advice. So, Fondly has done such a good job at making the country of Kekon feel real by developing its politics and economy and the magic that's all embedded and enmeshed together. So my advice is actually to join our Patreon, even if it's just for 1 month, to listen to our...
Please join our Patreon.
To listen to our world-building workshop episodes, particularly the ones on building a city and an economy, which for some reason were both hosted by Christiana. So, go listen to Christiana's episodes for some practical advice and questions you can ask yourself about your world. So we give a list of questions you can use, and we go through them and answer them and build those things ourselves, and then you can take that for inspiration. They're such fun episodes. Really go listen to them.
They're so fun.
You have access to all of them if you join our Patreon.
Little self-plug there. I love it. I'm going to make all of my advice that.
I will give you some extra free advice here. If there's one question you could take away from Jade City to ask while you're world building, I challenge you to ask what's a resource that your city or region specializes in? Why is it valuable? Who wants it? And why? I think Jade is such a fundamental aspect of Jade City. You can't not take inspiration from that in your own world building.
That's very cool. I think that's both great pieces of advice that
thank
follow.
you.
And Christiana, what do you take away from Jade City to apply to world building?
Mine kind of actually builds off of Allison's. Because my question or advice would be like, what can you start with? So the story could have just started with, there are warring clans. What are they warring over? Jade? Great. Why? Why Jade? It could be a fun world building exercise to take some of these more simple, kind of recognizable premises and then just roll with it from there. So if you want to do an urban fantasy, okay, what kind of city does it look like? Why does the city look like that? What are we doing from there, right? You can take just one thing and just kind of continue building off of it in that way. I think that's a really fun approach to world building, is just focusing on one little aspect and then you end up adding in all these little extra pieces and it makes it very cohesive versus if you have this idea of a kingdom and then you have a separate idea of a religion and you try and smush it together. It might not always work like that. So yeah, listen to our world building workshops, obviously.
And for urban fantasy, you want your city setting to be really deep in the world building. Like, you don't want your story to be able to take place in any city.
Anywhere.
It has to be this city and why. Yeah.
It's literally in the title of the genre. If you're building a city for urban fantasy, it has to be urban. And
it could be a real city. Like, lots of urban fantasy takes place in our world.
Absolutely.
And then you don't have to do a lot of the extra work. But figuring out how, like, your fantasy creatures or magic fits into that city is also a fun exercise.
Exactly. And that could be the starting question. I want to set an urban fantasy in Winnipeg.
Yes.
What creatures would live in Winnipeg? What things would be happening in Winnipeg? What suits the city, whether it be environment or people or whatever, right? Start with one question. Abominable snowmen and some sort of river-dwelling monsters.
Creature.
Ooh,
yes,
river creatures.
River.
Yeah. Ooh,
monster.
I want to write that now.
Yeah.
That sounds fun.
Tune in next time for our... I think what I would take away from Jade City, and it's a little bit cheating because we talked about it so much this episode, but I just think it's such a good example of it, is have everything in your world intertwine. Like, don't have your magic system be separate from your religion, be separate from your economic system, like, these should all interact. And the level to which they interact can totally depend on your own world. But everything in our world is connected in various ways, and so I think everything in your fictional world should also be connected to a greater or lesser degree. And I think the greater of importance something is, the more effect it has on the things around you. So if magic is really important in your world, it's going to affect a lot of the things around it. If magic's not very important in your world or in your story, then it can be a little bit more siloed off by itself. But I think being aware that things should connect and should impact each other is really important to have a really realistic world that feels lived in and that feels authentic. So start building those little connections. Think about how, if this was true, this would also be true, this would also be true. All those kind of little...
That is great advice.
Oh, and subscribe to our Patreon is also my second piece of advice.
We work hard on those world building workshop
They're
episodes.
really good.
We want people to
and
listen
they're fun.
to them.
Yeah.
They're so fun.
There is also, we have one up that's available for everybody to listen to. So if you're like, I don't know, is it any good? You should go listen to our one on building magic systems.
It was a very fun magic system.
It was.
We made sentient trinkets as the magic, which is very fun.
So that is available wherever you listen to your podcasts. Just look for the World Building Workshop episodes. Unfortunately, this brings us to closing time. We'd love to stay longer, but these crates aren't going to unpack themselves. Thank you so much for joining us at the tavern today. If hands-on world building is something that interests you, along with these theoretical discussions, then make sure you check out our world building workshops.
What?
I think we may have
mentioned
those once or twice before. These are, of course, bonus monthly episodes where we build a different element of a world every session, available for patrons at our $5 and up tiers at patreon.com/worldbuilderstavern. In this month's episode, which should already be out, we are going to be building a secret society.
Ooh, I'm excited.
Very fun. Check our description for a link to help a Palestinian family escape Gaza. And you can find us on our website, worldbuilderstavern.com, which has links to our TikTok, Discord, and our bookshop.org page, where you can buy books we talk about, like Jade City, which will support us and an indie bookstore. We hope to serve you here again soon, but until next time, scram!
Bye.
Get out of here.